shame we're easily amused. The only cure for this forward motion is to make emotions fly away. The air is cold, but the water's not frozen. I see ripples rolling every day. Cast a stone and hit a hardcore view. Catchphrase of the day is that it's true. There's no coffee talk and only one way to please. It's a shame what you do moves me. The only cure for this forward motion is to make emotion fly away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to It's All Goodall right here on Rebellious Ufology. I am Lynn Hurley with my co-host Jim Goodall. How are you, Jim?
I'm doing great. I gotta change your name in my address book since it's no longer what it was. It is something new.
I know. It's tough. I got to change it on everything still, too.
Yeah. So you had a good week?
I had a great week. Yeah,
Good.
It's been super, super busy. Been out on adventures really
Yeah.
this week, so I can't wait.
Yeah,
But-
we hit 111 this last weekend, and
Wow.
it's supposed to be 105, 100 to 105 the rest of the week.
Oh my God.
Enzo is here.
Enzo.
He's one of the diehards. Yes.
Yeah, we love it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And so
Candy
111,
Romero.
holy
Yeah.
mackerel.
Yeah, but unlike Texas, that our guest is from, we don't have the humidity. I mean, last summer we had a dew point. And that means that shows you how much moisture's in the air. And when you reach the dew point, you get fog. But it was like 114, and the dew point was minus 18.
Wow.
That's 18 degrees below zero before we get any condensation. So
wow, that's crazy.
But it is, living in the desert, that's what you have to expect. And I never ever have to worry about shoveling snow. And that's important. I did that. I did that in Alaska when I spent 3 years up there, 3 winters, and 3 winters in Denver, and 27 winters in Minnesota. So
yeah, I think you've had your fair share of snow.
Yep. And I didn't see snow until I went in the service.
Oh, really?
I grew up in the Bay Area. I grew up in what is now
right.
Silicon Valley. I grew up in the Mountain View, Los Altos area.
Oh, wow.
But I don't miss that part of the world. It's just absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
But that's basically where I got my passion for airplanes, hanging around Moffett Field and
right.
everything that was going on way back when. But it's going to be a fun week. We're heading off to Minnesota on Wednesday. My grandson can finally have he's in high school, he graduated from high school. They're finally going to have a graduation ceremony, which is going to be on Saturday.
Oh, that's exciting.
But the heat index is 105. The dew point's in the 80s.
Wow.
So it's going to be sweltering.
Yeah.
But my wife and I are staying with my ex-wife.
Nice. Yes, you told me that you were friends with her still.
Yeah, we have a good relationship. We have a good relationship. So
that's incredible. Well, that's wonderful. Well, speaking of sweltering places, our guest tonight is from Texas. So she's currently in Oklahoma, and she has a new channel on YouTube called Mindforked, which is hilarious. If anybody hasn't seen it, go check it out. It's incredible. one of my favorite people on YouTube, Miss AkashiCris. Do you think we should bring her on at this point?
Absolutely.
All right.
Bring her on board.
Let's get the fun going. Cris!
I'm talking Jim Goodall. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy.
Oh no, come on. You're gonna give me a big head. Yeah.
I know, right? Everybody be prepared because we were already like backstage and we just started talking and then it's like, you guys stop. It's time for the show. I'm like, oh shoot, this is
It's gonna be great.
It's gonna be awesome. So
I'm just gonna have to sit back and have a drink and watch you guys. Just let you guys go tonight. That's gonna be easy for me.
oh no, this is definitely a very interactive combo. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
Absolutely. So both of you, this was interesting, and I didn't even like think about this until you guys were chatting earlier, but both of you are sort of relatively new-ish to this whole kind of crazy UFO like YouTube community, really. I'd say within the past couple of years, right? I mean, for the community itself. I know, Jim, you've been researching it much longer.
50 years plus.
Yeah.
Just 50.
Just a few.
50,
Yeah.
That's all.
But no, it wasn't, and I mentioned it before, but it wasn't, I didn't have any involvement in MUFON or anybody in the UFO community other than the fact that the late John Lear was a dear friend of mine for almost 50 years. And because of my friendship with John Lear, I met Bob Lazar and we became friends. And I met Bob before he went to work out in the desert. And of course, along with that goes George Knapp and half a dozen other characters. But I really didn't have any involvement in the UFO community other than being an observer. And March of 19, they had a big MUFON gathering in Phoenix. And I live in Tucson. Mm-hmm. So I drove up 90 miles up there. I drove up to see Michael Schratt. He's a very dear friend of mine. And we're
love him. Love him.
Oh, he just got back. He just returned after 3 days or 3.5 days in Roswell. He scanned something like 12 to 15,000 documents.
Oh my gosh!
It said he was blown away by some of the stuff he saw. So
what I would give to sit in that library that he has, that the one with all the white binders.
He has 230 binders. I mean, literally they're 6 or 8 inch thick. And he has 231 or 237 of these binders, not counting probably 75 to 100 four drawer filing cabinets filled with stuff. And all he does is research stuff that he can put a storyline around. He doesn't offer any explanation, any opinion. He's like Sergeant Joe Friday in Dragnet. It's the facts and just the facts. But the names have not been changed to protect the innocent. He wants to throw them out there in front of God and everybody. So
he's so awesome. I interviewed him once, and it was so hilarious, Jim, because it was like the screen was full of women and Michael Schratt right in the middle. It was like,
he would have loved that.
Ladies' night, and he was so awesome. He was like getting, we were all peppering him with questions, but he's very level-headed, very cool, like just the facts. It's very much data. I'm reporting what I was told, and I'm not going to give you my opinion. That was
right.
Awesome.
And he came out with his Dark Files book, and he can probably do 100 of them. He's been doing his Blue Room Media on YouTube, and he went from 0 to I think 6,000 or 7,000 in 3 weeks. Wow. So I mean, he is the best that at what he does. No one does it better. No one is more thorough and more complete. And in his book, Dark Files, he not only has the event, but he also has all of the supporting documents to go with it. And he is the best researcher, bar none. and I know he's been working with some fairly influential people in the industry, in the UFO disclosure industry. So, and he comes out and gives me a visit every couple, 3 or 4 months, 5 months. He'll come out and spend a couple of days here, and he's just a good guy, and I wish him nothing but the very, very best. I'd like to find someone he's compatible with, who's a UFO nut. That's a good looking, fun young lady. But
all right, all the ladies out there, you heard it.
yeah. Well, I'll push him in the right direction. But like
and he's going to be the next UFO bachelor. We talked about
yeah, absolutely.
I will like get the women all set up. I'll do the pre-interviews. I can do the production, the interviews behind the scenes. I got it all covered.
We can do a panel. Michael can choose. He can ask them each questions. Be great.
Yeah.
I'm totally a Yentl. I'll like do the matchmaking. Yeah, I'll help out. But no, one thing I was going to mention that I think is seriously cool, also layered on top of all the data and all the research that he's done, is the artistic representations of these cases.
Oh yes,
it just add a totally different level.
And he pays artists to do the renderings.
That's oh my God. And they're so amazing. I mean, the pictures are just mesmerizing because they really tell the story.
Yeah.
So anyway, we love Michael, so we'll have to have him on.
Now he said he scanned, was it 150 or 200 newspaper clippings on an 1890 something UFO event, and it was reported in papers all over the Midwest. And I'm not sure the physical location, but we're going to have him on this program here soon. He's already agreed to do it. We just have to put him in the mix.
Mm-hmm. Always. Yes. Michael is always welcome anytime.
Yep. Yeah.
Anytime.
So
we wanted to talk. Oh, go ahead.
I said, where are we heading today? What adventure?
Yeah. So I was talking to Jim, and so I'm so glad Enzo is on chat too, because we were talking about doing it, but in a very good way. So so this morning, I've been thinking about stuff that we can talk to Jim about, and it's like so many different topics. But this morning something came up that kind of matched something I was already thinking. There was an interview with Bill Clinton on James Corden this week. And number one, I was so impressed that somebody asked him a very good question about UFOs, not just, hey, are aliens real? He was, the way the question was worded, it was like based on the stuff that's coming out of the Pentagon and the hearings and all that, what do you think? And he said something about sending agents to look for aliens. But in that, we just kind of chuckled at that. But Enzo brought a really good point, which was that they could be, he could have been just dealing with the lawsuits from the people that were hurt at the burn pits in Area 51.
Yep.
So that just kind of opened, and then I was thinking, because I was already thinking, let's talk about Dugway Proving Grounds and what else are they doing out there that's hurting, whether it's sheep or cattle or people. I mean, it's just horrible. So, and it's not all Goodall. So I wanted to ask Jim Goodall what he that's not all Goodall with me, Jim Goodall.
Yeah, well,
you're a good guy.
To get to the burn pits in Area 51, they were burning the solvents and materials used in stealth coatings, your low observables.
That doesn't seem like a smart idea.
Well, they had to get this is a new area of interest for United States military. I don't think they realize that the level of toxicity of the solvents and stuff you need to create an invisible airplane to radar. And it's the solvents. I got a buddy of mine who spent 5 years at Area 51 on the F-117 program. And he said, including himself, everybody he knows that was there has had an experience with cancer.
Wow.
Either multiple polyps in his colon. Ben Rich, who was the president of Lockheed Skunk Works, He died, I think it was 96, 97. I should know, okay, he was a friend of mine, but he died of esophageal cancer. And that's from breathing the fumes there at the Skunk Works when they were building the F-117 and plus Half Blue and a couple of the other programs.
Mm-hmm.
So it is the stuff is really, really nasty. And I won't give my friend's name because he still works in the industry, not in the Air Force anymore, but he still works in the spooky airplane programs industry and the low observable industry. He said, that stuff is just nasty. He said, if you open a container of the solvent, whatever the solvent is, and you're 3 doors down, in your office and you get a whiff of it, he said, oh, that stuff stinks. You've already been damaged. That's how nasty this stuff is.
Oh.
And the only way they knew to get rid of it is to burn it. They didn't burn it in an incinerator like they did the nerve gas when we destroyed thousands of gallons of VX and other types of nasty nerve agents. They took that out to Kwajalein out in the middle of the Pacific, and I forgot how they had 15,000 barrels of nerve agents that over the course of about 10 years, they incinerated and they burnt to a crisp. If you get the temperature high enough, it breaks it down to the basic elements, carbon, hydrogen, those, mercury, lead, stuff like that. So it's really, really nasty stuff. And they to get rid of it at Area 51, initially they had 4 big pits, and they would just throw anything they didn't want in the pit. And then they'd pump jet fuel in it and burn it. It's the easiest way to do it. And one of the problems they ran into, guys were going in there after a burn, and maybe they had thousands of feet of wire. Now the fire burned all the insulation off. So now they're going to take all this stuff back to Las Vegas and recycle it because it's copper. Mm-hmm. And apparently that caused a whole series of problems that no one was looking far enough into the future to realize, just what a can of worms some of this stuff is. So they had and there was a congressman involved in it. He tried to shut down Area 51 because of the toxicity. He wanted to go in there and investigate it himself. And he was a congressman from Nevada. I should remember his name, but I don't. And he was going to, he was just going to run the Air Force and DOD and the people who manage Area 51. He wanted to run them through the coals because the stuff they were dealing with was just so toxic. But in reality, and to the 3 of us here, those of us, those of you out there in the listening audience, Area 51 is a physical place. You can look at it at Google Earth, but it doesn't really exist. It's gotten more public over the years, but you could be in Area 51. They could shoot you dead. You're with, you can see me from the fence line. There isn't a legal authority anywhere within the federal government or the state of Nevada or the United States Air Force that would have the authority to come and retrieve your body, or my body if it was me. And furthermore, even if they were able to somehow get your body out, since the place is really a black hole, it doesn't officially exist. There's no way that you could file charges against anybody or any entity for killing you. And that's one of the problems of dealing with something in a real super black environment is unless you have that little thing on your security badge and that thing in your 201 file that says that this is your level of security and compartmentalization of it, you're just SOL, as they call it.
Wow.
And it stands for short on luck, but there's another, there's other words that go with it too. So yeah. But we'll keep it clean just for these purposes.
It's a family show today.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Hey, Terry.
Hey, Terry.
It's a pretty dog. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a pretty dog.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a beautiful German Shepherd rescue. Her name is Scarlet. And she doesn't do anything, but she's beautiful. She was a feral street dog from the time she was a puppy until they found her. She was about 14 months old when they picked her up. And we managed to rescue her, and she's an absolute joy to behold. I love dogs, all dogs, but I especially love German Shepherd dogs.
They're beautiful.
They are my favorite. They're incredibly smart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you hear panting in the background at some point, there's not something crazy going on. It's my Boston Bulldog.
Well, I have to keep my office closed because at 5:30 my time, right now it's 5:20. At 5:30, she knows that I'm supposed to be in the living room with the rest of her pack, my wife and her and me. We have to be together. And she'll come into the office if I'm still on this stupid computer, and she'll start barking at me. And she won't stop barking at me until it's 5:30. It's our pack gets together at that time. Before that's one thing. So
I love it. It's amazing how they keep track of time. I mean, Lulu, who is as usual currently sleeping in my lap
at some point today.
She's sleeping on my lap. She's
we gotta wake her up in a little while. She's gonna make her appearance.
I saw her head earlier. So.
Yeah, I could see her ears a little bit earlier, but she is like, it's like she has an internal mechanism for when it is time to EAT. And she knows, and it's almost like she knows the hour beforehand, and she'll start trying to like, maybe you'll give me something a little early, and she'll keep trying and trying, even though she knows. But it's amazing how they can tell time. It's incredible.
About an hour before dinner time, she goes, Scarlet lays down in front of the stove.
Yeah.
Mine sits in front of me and stares me down like it's almost time. She's just staring at me like, my husband, he'll tell it. It's a true story. So I have a question, Jim. So if stuff like that is happening, right? Yep. So it was happening, and obviously there are lawsuits. There are people that have been hurt. I have no sense for like a volume of how many people have been hurt through these programs, and that's just the stuff that we know. So that kind of took me, when I was looking at Dugway Proving Grounds and the stuff that they did there back in, the 6,000 sheep that died in 1968, because and we wanted to talk about that. But if those are things that they denied it. They paid them off. They paid the ranchers, right? So it's like, how many things where I'm going with this is like, how many things that we know that they've denied that now they've been proven wrong, and how many things we don't know, are they burning other things because they're trying to cover, because they want to get rid of things that, you don't want to inventory, so I kind of wanted to get your take on that stuff.
Well, I mean, the stuff that we're burning at Area 51, and because it was so incredibly toxic, they couldn't ship it out to an EPA certified disposal site because this stuff was just too nasty. So their only solution, and it was a solution because there was no oversight at Area 51. There's no EPA person assigned to Area 51 to make sure. There probably is today. But back in the 70s, actually, when they first went there in the mid 50s for the U2 operation, that place has been off limits to everybody. Like I say, there's literally no oversight. The oversight that you get are from the men and women at Lockheed, who probably have produced more classified programs there than anybody else. I mean, you had the U-2 spy plane, you had the Blackbirds, and you had the F-117s, and who knows? First Floor Audio just said hi, and I'll say hi back. But it's that whole area is, again, there was no way for someone who was injured, people that had came down with nasty cancers. That's when they were suing the federal government and the people who run Area 51. That's when all the investigations started going. That's when the congressman got involved, and they kept running into brick walls because there wasn't a door that they can knock on because the doors don't exist, at least not in our world. Now, if you're working in the black world, I mean, when I say black, that's the deep classified above top secret stuff. Those are the only people who knew where the door was. So you couldn't even beat on the door and say, okay, I smell something nasty coming out of there. I want you to stop. I'm gonna file suit. I want this and that and whatever. And it was like talking to a wall, or my ex-wife, one of the two.
Is that the one that you're staying with? I'm just staying at her house. That's for a totally different combo. But okay, I went looking for stuff. How far do you think they went? Is it till the 70s or 80s? Were they still doing this? Because I went online and man, I was so surprised to find so many lawyers that focus on burn pits. I actually looked it up and I'm like, yeah, VA, people representing like all kinds of VA forums talk about it. And there were all kinds of lawyers that were popping up that focus on this type of stuff. I didn't know that this was such a practice. And how do they get away with this?
I've been battling the Veterans Administration and the Air Force. I think more the VA than just the Air Force. I was exposed to really nasty chemicals in the early 60s. That if you had those same chemicals today, and I'm talking about carbon tetrachloride and carbon tet, I can't remember what the other one is, but it's an equally nasty hydrocarbon solvent. Well, we used to heat it up to 180 degrees and there was no ventilation. This is 1962.
Oh my gosh.
And you go in there, you take your equipment, if it's all gummed up. It's just, we were part of the crypto. We had the crypto guys, and they'd take their machines and they just took the whole thing and they'd put it in this 180-degree carbon tetrachloride or trichoethylene, swish it around, you pull it out. It is spotless. I mean, this stuff will take all, clean up everything. Well, the day Challenger blew up, I was at Mayo Clinic undergoing 9.5 hours of brain surgery because I had a brain tumor. And my doctors said, and this is 1986, and they asked me, he said, were you exposed to any carcinogenic chemicals when you were a kid? And I said, at the time I couldn't think of any, but then years later, I'm talking about 35 years later, and I was talking to a friend of mine and he said, well, if you were breathing that stuff, I mean, you couldn't do that. You could hardly even buy those chemicals today, let alone having them in a non-ventilated room at almost boiling temperature. And when you walk through the maintenance room, and literally when you walk out the other door, you were bouncing down the hallway. The stuff was so nasty, but you didn't think about it back in the 60s. And they said that was probably what caused my brain tumor.
Oh my gosh!
The tumor I had was probably because I was exposed. Yet I've been given the runaround.
You were young for that. You were really young. Yeah.
I was 17.
Wow.
And
out of
I've
the
got
blue,
nothing with the runaround.
I mean, it's not like it happened in your family a lot, right?
Right. So here I got exposed to nasty stuff in a wide open, non-classified environment, and I'm running into brick walls everywhere. Can you imagine what it's like when you are dealing with something that's classified, something that nobody has the magic key to open the door to where those problems exist. And disposal of nasty chemicals, it's been going on forever. I mean, they used to put it in barrels and dump it off in the ocean. I guess there's an area off of Long Island where Grumman Aerospace, they used to build airplanes there in Long Island. The F-14 was made there, and a lot of other, Republic aircraft was there, along with Grumman Corporation. And they get all these nasty solvents and whatever. They put them in 55-gallon drums. They take them out to the ocean and they dump them. Well, now those things are coming loose, and who knows what's going to come out of the ocean? It's going to be like some horror movie or whatever someday.
Oh God! It'd be like what was it? Not Sharknado. I was thinking the one with the octopus and sharks kind of came together.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like a
yeah. It'd be like a Godzilla type of thing will come out of here.
That is crazy. Yeah. Hey Jim, have you ever heard? Terry had asked the question. Has Jim ever heard of Goat Mountain in Oregon?
Which mountain?
Goat.
I think it's near Roseburg, Oregon. And if this is the same one I'm thinking about, they can tell what the weather is depending on where the goats are on the side of the mountain.
Really?
Yeah, they're mountain goats.
That's amazing.
And if they're high, they know the weather's going to be nice. If they're low, they know it's probably going to have rain. I mean, that is their weather forecaster in Roseburg, Oregon.
That's amazing. I love it.
So that's the only goat mountain I'm aware of. So.
Well, I hope that's what it is, because that's just incredible. I kind of love it. So Rodrigo also has a question for you. Does Jim believe they finally reverse engineered the craft Bob Lazar was working on and are using that tech today?
Well, when I see videos, and a lot of them are not very sharp. They're all done with smartphones. I wish someone would take an expensive video camera or an expensive, still camera, digital camera to shoot these things with some good long range glass. But there's any object out there that looks like a TR-3B or a Tic Tac. If it has formation lights on it, if it has a green and red light on it, it is man-made. I have to believe that. Mm-hmm. That was the only reason they would put that on. Those triangle-shaped craft that do not have any anti-collision lights on them, they would probably be from someone other than here.
Though, if they wanted to keep them secret, wouldn't they does the stealth aircraft have a red and green light?
When they're flying in non-restricted airspace, yes.
They do? Oh, interesting.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
The Blackbird, the F-117, the B-2, all the stealth aircraft, they have, their anti-collision and formation lights retract, into the, flush mounted on the fuselage, so you don't get the radar return. And it doesn't take much of on an airplane to cause a radar return. When they were first testing the F-117, they had it up on a pole. This is at either at Hellendale, or it may have been the Rathscatter out at White Sands Missile Range. Mm-hmm. They had worked on this thing, and they're moving it around different angles and whatever. And primarily, you're concerned with the frontal 30 degree either side of the nose, and that's where your radar is coming from, because you're going into harm's way. So that's where they want to have. That's where the low observable part of it has to be the most effective. Trailing edge, not so much. But there's. I hate it when my brain is going in 4 different directions at 100 miles an hour. But the F-117, when they had it up on a pylon, they knew what the reading was, and it would bick up just a little bit. So they went in, they went to coffee, they came back, they had repositioned the F-117 shape, turned on the radar to check this particular position, and everything went off scale. What the hell happened? So they turned the lights on, because they do it in total darkness, and they do it at night because they don't want people to be driving down some dirt road and they see some activity. So what's that? What was that weird thing on a pole in the middle of nowhere? And they turns out the first time he did it, there was a bird, a small little bird was on top of the nose, and that's what threw everything off scale on the F-117. And then a couple of weeks later, they're doing some stuff and they're doing testing. They knew they had their baseline, did some stuff, and all of a sudden it just went all the way off of scale. They turned the lights on. There was no bird. It's still off scale. So they brought the shape down. They started looking it over, and there was a screw that wasn't all the way in on a panel. Now the radar that they're using is, one, they're very close, and two, it's very powerful, and it's they can test it at certain frequencies. So it's probably 100 or 1,000 times more powerful than they would find if it was flying in a combat environment. But they want to make sure that even with the most powerful radars. Now, stealth isn't the end all, because there's ways for you and I to discover stealth, to track a stealth airplane, and even track it. But you have to have some very good communications, and you have to have some very good computers. And what you do is you have a very powerful VHS signal going out, a TV signal. You're blasting it out. You've cranked the gain all the way up and everything else. You're not worried about anything coming back to your site, but then you have maybe 10 or 15 receiving sites scattered throughout the country, and they'll get a blip off of the signal. And you get enough of those blips showing up, and they can triangulate and figure out where the airplane is. And that was one of the things they said when they shot down the F-117 stealth fighter in Kosovo back in the early 90s or late 90s, whenever it was. You going to sleep, Cris? Oh.
Well, I'm getting
I thought you were just going like this. Oh, okay.
I was getting my charger, and I fell down.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I don't want my computer to die. I'm so sorry. I'm right here.
That's all right. But the F-117 flew the same mission profile three nights in a row. And I thought they learned that lesson during Vietnam, where they flew a Blackbird over Hanoi Haiphong 3 days in a row. And the first day really irritated the heck out of the North Vietnamese and the Chinese and the Russians that were there. And when they came back the next day, it irritated them that much more. So they put a whole bunch of people out in the field. They dug parabolic trenches out in the field. They knew that when it flew over Hanoi Haiphong and they picked it up, that they knew was 41 minutes before it came back. What they were doing, the Blackbird was going over Hanoi Haiphong. It was air refueling over Thailand and then heading back over for another pass. And they were photographing, pretty 80 to 90% of all the surface-to-air missiles in the country on those passes. And it's just Denny Sullivan went on the 27th of October 1967, and surprised the heck out of the North Vietnamese. They couldn't figure out what this thing was. This is 1967. This is before the SR-71s were flying, before they were operational. And so they had to be looking up to find him. I don't know how they tracked him. They probably heard the sonic boom, but it really irritated the hell out of them. So they were going to do what they can do. On the third day, they knew what the flight profile was, and they fired something like 50 some odd surface-to-air missiles at Denny. And on an A-12 Blackbird, the CIA version of the Blackbird, there's a periscope above the Q bay where the camera is behind the cockpit. And when it's being tracked by surface-to-air missile radar, it will take 1 frame a second in 16 millimeter film and what that does, they get back to the command post. They get the stuff processed. They'll take a look at it, and they can see how many surface-to-air missiles were fired at the Blackbird. And some was 50 some odd missiles were fired at them. And they had set the proximity fuse to 90,000 feet. That's how high they were. Denny said they were going over Hanoi Haipong on the first missions. And the security people and the intelligence people said, certainly, SA-2s, which was the predominant surface-to-air missile back in that time frame in the 60s and early 70s, they said they can't get above 70,000 feet. And Denny was really irritated because he saw contrails behind him above 95,000 feet.
Wow.
And then the missile will go up there and not be near anything, and then come down, crash in their country. They probably blame it on us. But they set the proximity fuses for 90,000 feet, and they fired up 45 to 50 surface-to-air missiles at them. Everything they had in the country, they fired at them.
Oh my gosh.
And when they got back to Kadena, Okinawa, that's where they were based, and they did a post-flight inspection, and there was some damage to one of the pie panels on the inside of the leading edge of the airplane. So they took the pie panel, it's composite, they replaced it. They damaged panel to CIA. They did an analysis of what caused the damage, and it was a fusing mechanism for an SA-2 surface-to-air missile, SAM. So Denny Sullivan, he just passed away here earlier this year. He is the highest flying pilot ever to sustain flak damage, 90,000 feet. But because the program, the Oxcart program, the A-12 program, was classified as deep as it was, he never got the accolades for being the highest flying pilot to sustain flak damage at 90,000 feet. So,
wow.
but you actually have to cause damage to a fast mover or just a high flyer, because there's less than 0.4% of the atmosphere. The surface-to-air missile has to hit it, the object, or it has to at least blow up in front of it and have the debris from the warhead damage the airplane to the point it'll bring it down.
Wow.
And that didn't happen, because, like I say, you literally have to hit it. And a surface-to-air missile is a boost glide. So you fire, you're going up Mach 3, Mach 4, and then the rocket motor ends up. But inertia will keep you going. Because the atmosphere is so thin up there, the control vanes on the nose of the surface-to-air missile, they're too small to have any effect on the airflow. So it's just like you close your eyes and shoot. And maybe it's a golden baby, maybe it takes it down, but it didn't. During Desert Storm, the Iraqis fired absolutely everything that they could fire at the F-117s flying over Baghdad, bombing the daylights out of them.
Wow.
And out of the 1,271 F-117 missions, there wasn't one that sustained any damage.
Wow.
There were some pilots that messed their pants. There was one. He was a colonel.
As long as the tech wasn't hurt.
Yeah.
Right.
His last name was I think it was Mayer or Meyer. He had graduated from the Air Force Academy in 1976, so he knew Vietnam was over. I get my 20 years in, not a problem. I never have to fly in a combat environment. Well, he was the last F-117 to take off on the night Desert Storm started. You go up, radio silence. There's 3,000 airplanes in the air, and the AWACS was controlling all the airspace. Wow. And the tankers, they didn't know where stealth airplanes were. Everybody had their anti-collision lights turned off. It wasn't until an F-117 came up, turned his in-flight refueling receptacle on with the light, that a boom operator knew, I got an airplane here, and then they refueled. But Colonel Mayer said that he was going right up the Iraq-Iran border, and he could see the fireworks going on in Baghdad, and he said it was terrifying. He said what you saw on CNN with all that AAA going up and everything going up, that was a postage stamp size stuff going in the air in a football field size area. They said you could almost walk on everything that was being fired. They were just shooting everything they had to take whatever was bombing them out of the sky. And Colonel Mayer said that he was said the autopilot turned him in towards Baghdad because he said he could not have done it himself. At least that's what he said during his presentation. But he said as he's flying, he had to go across the city of Baghdad to the other side. And I believe it was his airplane that dropped the bomb down the elevator shaft.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could actually pick a window that you wanted to put the bomb, and it would fly in that window.
Wow.
But he said he was flying, everything was fine, and he had an SA-5 go zipping by him about 500 yards away, and another one. And he lowered his seat all the way down, put his head underneath the anti-glare panel, and I said, I know I'm not going to make it, but I got to do my very best to get to target. And he did, and got his primary and secondary target. And he figured that he may be the only survivor. There was so much AAA going up and surface-to-air missiles going up. They said he didn't see how anybody could survive it. Well, it turns out he was the very last guy to come in to land in southwestern Saudi Arabia, and he was terrified. But as soon as he got into the Saudi frontier, he lowered his antennas because he was flying in stealth mode. Lowered his antennas, to check in with a tank or an AWACS. When he got back to the base, it was daylight, and his biggest fear, the sun was going to come up while he was still over Iraq, and he didn't want that because it's a big black airplane. It's easy to see 20, 30 miles away.
Yeah.
And when he landed at the base, absolutely everybody from the maintenance people and the janitors and the cooks and everybody was out on the taxiway as the last F-117 came in, and they knew it was a success and no one got shot down.
Wow.
So that's what stealth does. But those are the same things that keep us from knowing what happened when they were burning the nasty stuff out in the desert. Or they're just, way back when, it was Otis Air Force Base was on Cape Cod, at the end of Cape Cod, a beautiful, beautiful area, just before it hooks up, but it's still in the main part. And for 25 years, they had Lockheed Constellations, a triple tail 4-engine propeller driven, they call them EC-121s. And they go up there after they did their flights or did an engine test. They go up at the highest part on Cape Cod. They'd run up the engine, and then they would test their emergency fuel dump. And they would dump hundreds of gallons of 115, 145 avgas into the ground. Well, that's all gravel. It's all pushed around by glaciers. That's what created Cape Cod and Boston Harbor. And it turns out this is back in the 70s, late 70s. Some gentleman had turned his water on, and he had lit a cigarette and threw the match down, and the water caught on fire. So they did a testing of the groundwater, and they figured there was 600,000 gallons of 115. That's 115 octane to 145 octane avgas in the groundwater on Cape Cod.
Oh my gosh!
And they had to supply everybody with bottled water until they actually brought in water from someplace that wasn't contaminated for Martha's Vineyards.
How long did that go on until they figured it out? It's like
it was years. It was decades. It was decades.
Like,
oh my goodness!
Great.
Yeah.
I would, I'm an Aquafina person. I need my tap water, and the idea that my tap water is full of that. Yeah, there we go. I can't even imagine. So let me ask you something. How far do you think? So we know how far you've talked about different planes and stuff, and how far the technology has gone. But how far do you think it's really gone? Because I was watching I was telling him before we started the show, Chad, I was watching the rise of TR-3B. And one of the things they were talking about, you were talking about how high these planes go. One of the examples they were talking about was going to like 180,000 feet or something. I mean, how advanced do you think we've gone that we, the mainstream, just based on your opinion, how far do you think they've gone?
Well, I was blessed to have Ben Rich. He replaced Kelly Johnson in Lockheed Skunk Works. And Ben and I talked once a quarter for 25 years. And he's made formal statements that you have it on the beginning of your lead in to the program. But Ben Rich and I were talking, this is 96, 97 timeframe. And he was at USC Medical Center. He's dying from esophageal cancer, from breathing all that nasty stuff.
Yeah.
And we were talking about our late friend, John Andrews from Testers, who actually did a plastic kit model of Bob Lazar's sports model UFO. And it's a 1/48 scale. But we were talking, and he said, Jim, we have things out in the desert that's 50 years beyond what you can comprehend. And he's referring to me, not the general public. And I can comprehend a hell of a lot. He said, if you've seen movies like Star Trek or Star Wars, we've been there. And that's what he said at UCLA. But he said, if you've seen movies like Star Trek or Star Wars, we've been there, done that, or decided it wasn't worth the effort. And so I asked Ben, I said, do you want to expand upon that? And in typical Ben Rich, I mean, I just loved the guy. He said, no. And then he had the nerve to die on me about 10 days later. So, but he was, I don't know how I got on his good side, other than the fact that I think he admired John Andrews and myself, never being part of Lockheed Skunk Works, but we have, and I've had a passion about Lockheed and the Lockheed Skunk Works since I was a little kid. And I actually got stuck in a Skunk Works airplane when I was about 10. And it was still classified. It was at Moffett Field. It was at Moffett Field. I mean, my love affair with Lockheed airplanes and airplanes in general go back from over 70 years. I'm 77, and
you don't look it. So.
I don't act it. I love life. My daily driver is a 430 horsepower Corvette Grand Sport, and it's black. That's just the color car you need living in the desert.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. That makes sense. Cool.
Yeah. I mean, you wash it, it's sparkly. 5 minutes later, you touch it. Oh, it has dust on it, and you can't stop it. So,
but it sure does look good.
Is that my ex? I have three of them, so
Oh, that's why I was asking if you were talking about the one that you're staying with. I'm like,
no.
I have a sweet wife I'm married to. Yeah.
Like Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah, no worries, Cris. So I have a question for you, Jim.
Okay.
Has Bob Lazar, because people have talked about, if we did have these extraterrestrial craft that we're trying to back engineer, or perhaps we have been working with extraterrestrials, that is how we got a lot of our advanced technology, including stealth technology. Has Bob ever said anything like that? Or Ben Rich maybe hinted at anything like that? Have you ever heard anything about stealth technology?
No, I even asked Jeff Babion, who just retired from the Lockheed Skunk Works. He was the vice president general manager. He was the head skunk. And last June, I had a book signing at the Skunk Works. I did. You can't see it very well. Let me move it over here.
It is.
There's my book. 75 years of Lockheed Skunk Works. So I was I was at the Skunk Works to do a book signing, and we went, and I got a picture of me standing on top of the X-59, which is a sonic boom test vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went over to the other side, over Site 2, where they maintain and fly the U-2s. And as we're heading over there and back in the limo, and I looked at Jeff right in the face, and we're this far apart. I said, all right, Jeff, how much alien technology, UFO technology is being utilized in Lockheed Skunk Works programs?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, he looked me straight in the eye and he said, I have absolutely no knowledge of any alien technology that was used in any of the Skunk Works programs. He said, it doesn't mean that something was incredibly classified long before I got here. And because it's so deep and so compartmentalized, I have no knowledge and no access to it. And my job is not to look to the past. My job is to build for the future.
Yeah.
And but he said, Lockheed has a zero comment policy on things that go bump in the night, UFOs, spooky stuff or whatever. They just don't comment, period. I said, but personally, I can't imagine we're alone. There's just we're an insignificant galaxy in an insignificant part of the universe. And what would make us special?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, and I believe I mentioned it on this program. I know I mentioned it a couple of different times. I used to work up as a docent up at Kitt Peak National Observatories. Mm-hmm. They're about 50 miles due west of Tucson. It's on a mountain. It's on what they call a sky island. It's Kitt Peak is, I think that the very peak of it is just under 7,000 feet. They have 22 optical telescopes up there, the largest concentration of optical telescopes in the world. Plus, they have 2 radio telescopes, a 12-meter and a 25-meter. The optical telescopes go from a 12-inch primary mirror to a 4-meter or a 13-foot primary mirror. And just before I quit volunteering up there, I did that for a couple of years, and I enjoyed it. But my knees, I've had both knees replaced, and going up and down. It's just, and I'm old. But just before that, we had a beer and pizza night or evening at what they call the NOAO, the National Optical Astronomy Observatory headquarters at the University of Arizona. And they had all the astronomers, all the technicians that maintain the telescopes, and all the docents. And we had one of the top guys from the National Science Foundation. He had just returned from a worldwide conference on exoplanets. And based on all the information and based on proven mathematical formulas, he said, when they came back, they got all the information, they put it in the number crunching machine, whatever that may be. And they came up with some really significant observations. They honestly believe that for every star in the universe, there's 1.5 planets. And for every planet, for every star, there's 1.5 planets. And out of that incredible number, there are 2 billion Earth-like planets orbiting a similar sized brown dwarf star as our sun in the inhabitable zone with liquid water. And to quote Jodie Foster's character in Carl Sagan's Contact, if we're the only ones, what a waste of space. I mean, we're an insignificant galaxy, or we're an insignificant solar system in an insignificant corner of an insignificant galaxy in an insignificant edge of the universe. Now, which is really fascinating is when they finally get the giant Magellan telescope up and running. It's being built in Chile, and the telescope is at 16,000 feet in altitude, so the air is very, very clear. It's one of the driest places on the world, and 200 miles from the nearest city, so they don't have any light pollution. They built at the University of Arizona at the Mirror Lab they have, I think they're all done building them. They have built 20. No, let me go back. They have built 8. One of them's a spare, 27-foot diameter mirrors for the giant Magellan telescope. And when they finally get first light, they probably figure they can see within 100,000 years of first light.
Wow.
They may see a McDonald's sign, or we're open for business sign, or no trespassing. I mean, who knows what they're going to see? They don't know.
Yeah.
But it. Okay, Michael Brooks, hello. From good old hot and sunny, hot and steamy Arizona. But I believe that the technology that's out there that we're seeing, that people are that are shooting with their smartphones. I mean, that's probably one of the reasons why the federal government and other governments around the world are getting more willing to talk about things that go bump in the night, because absolutely everybody has one of these puppies.
Mm-hmm.
And they do a nice job close up, even reasonable distances. But when their stuff's being shot at night, we're not getting a good picture. I mean, I think someone was at Disclosure in the Desert. It was at 2019, or maybe it was 2020. There were 3 lights, and they were moving together. And they shot it on an iPhone, and they didn't see a crap. But when they downloaded it on their computer or looked at it on the screen, they actually saw the triangle.
Yeah,
it was going in and out, and it was translucent.
Yeah.
And there were no flashing strobe lights, anti-collision beacons on the thing. So that probably was alien technology. But Ben Ritz said we have the ability to take ET home. Now, think about that statement. This is the president of the most advanced aeronautical design group ever. The Lockheed Skunk. They say Lockheed Martin. Bullshit. Excuse me. I say Lockheed. I say Lockheed Skunk Works, not Lockheed Martin, but it's Lockheed Skunk Works. That's what it's always been. And old timers, they have the mouth, just saying the word Martin in there. The old. We have the technology. The technology is so advanced that we're playing with, but like Ben said, our government or the governments will not allow us to make that public. They also have the ability to create unlimited power.
Oh, that just kills me.
Yeah.
You're killing me.
Yeah.
Do it. You're about to trigger me. Go for it.
Yeah. So this I think anything that the government, whether it's our government or other governments, but it's usually ours since we're the leader of the pack. Anything that comes out of the classified environment and they show to the world, it's probably 20 years old.
Yeah, it's old technology at that point, if we know about it.
We don't. I mean, they have. When the first shuttle went up, was it 81 when the first one went up?
I can't remember exactly.
And long time ago, 40 some odd years ago. So the first shuttle went up. They didn't know if they had any of the shuttle tiles were damaged. I mean, this is before they had the ability to do an extra vehicular trip. In other words, go outside and take a look. They didn't have that capability. And they were worried what happens if we lost a bunch of tiles on the black tiles on the bottom.
Yeah. And
the Air Force piped in and he said, you have 7 or 8 chipped tiles on the bottom. None are missing. Everything looks intact. So there's one that has a crack on it, but it should be okay. He said, how do you know? They're at 250 miles up. He said, we have our ways. I said, well, how? I said, It's classified.
Wow.
So we had the ability back then to look into space, ground-based telescopes, and actually take a close look at the bottom of the first space shuttle to make sure that everything was good.
This is while it was in orbit?
In orbit, yeah.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's old technology. The 2.1 meter telescope at Kitt Peak was used by Caltech for 5 years when they were doing their exoplanet research. And it had adaptive optics. And what they did is they shined up a UV laser. You and I can't see it, but sensors can see it. And in exactly 18 miles, this beam has to be so many atoms wide, or whatever the unit of measurement was.
Mm-hmm.
And it checks it 1,200 times a second. And 1,200 times a second, the mirror on the spectrometer is deforming the secondary mirror, and it has the same or similar resolution of the Hubble Space Telescope.
Wow!
Because first of all, the air over southern Arizona is turbulent free. It has very, very little dust in it, and there's very little air traffic. So, but anytime they have the laser going up, they have to clear it with Cheyenne Mountain or Space Force now to make sure that there are no satellites coming over, because that could blind a satellite. And there's no military or commercial traffic overflying the area, because you can't see it could damage your eyes if you were to look at it. But this was, relatively off-the-shelf technology that allowed us to adapt the optics to 1,200 times a second. That's a lot of adjustments every hour when they're looking for stuff. And it just so that we have the ability to look deep into space and to analyze things. And I'm sure some of the objects that have been seen around the space shuttle, some of the things they've seen around the International Space Station that they couldn't identify, they couldn't explain. I'm sure a ground-based system, either the one we have, one of the cameras I know is at Eglin Air Force Base. I think the other one is at Goddard, which I think is Maryland. There is one in Spain, and there's one in Australia, near Alice Springs or Pine Gap. And they have the ability to look into space and to take a close personal look at whatever you have orbiting us, whether it's a Russian or a Chinese satellite, or whether it's a UFO that we can't identify.
You know what kills me, and I know we have multiple questions in the chat that we want to get to, but I just what kills me. Yeah, I'm listening to you, and I'm like, we're capable of such, obviously we're capable of such crazy things, and nobody even knows that we're capable of. Why is it so crazy to think that there could be something out there that knows so much better than us? We're not the most evolved species. We treat each other like crap. We're not. We're just kind of the riffraff of. I see us kind of the riffraff of the universe. But at the same time, it's like if we're capable of doing all these things, why is it so crazy to think that something out there, that there are, other beings out there that are capable of doing something so much better? And just kind of. This doesn't sit well with me.
No, I mean, it's what we're dealing with is we may not be in control of the dissemination or the disclosure of what's been flying in our airspace, not made on this earth. I know when Tucker Carlson and a government spokesman said we have craft overflying some of our military installations not made of this earth. I called up Bob Lazar, and he said, well, what do you think of that? He said, I got all excited. But then I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, and the other shoe didn't drop. It's the same old BS. they dangle it out and then they pull it back, and it's like Lucy in her football.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trust me, I'm not going to pull the football away and just come in and go to kick, and pretty soon you're kicking air and you're falling your fanny.
Yeah.
So, Marios, what is the weirdest thing I saw into this topic? I have been out in the desert at the fence line at Tonopah Test Range or Area 51 over 80 times in the last 40 years. I have never, and it's not for trying, I have never seen anything I couldn't explain. I mean, I can remember being out at, next to the black mailbox in Tippecanoe Valley. The sun's going down. There's no moon. It's just a sliver, but it is as crystal clear as it comes. And the sun went behind the Papoose Range, and I'm saying to myself, okay, they say that the aliens could read your minds through telepathy. And I'm going like this. Okay, I'm thinking. Concentrating as hard as I can. Abduct me, but let me bring my Nikon with me so I can document this, or at least
that's where you went wrong.
at least my iPhone, so I can get some good close-ups of you guys.
This is not like Uber aliens. I don't think you can just go abduct me. This is my location. You're gonna have to, but do you meditate? Do you mind me asking?
Yes and no. Yeah, I smoke a lot of weed, so I guess that
It's in a meditative state, sure.
Well, actually, it is.
That and Cheetos, but
it's medically prescribed. I had.
There's no judgment here.
I know. I had 9.5 hours of brain surgery the day Challenger blew up. I was at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. I was under anesthesia for 11 hours. I wasn't supposed to make it. And that's what gives me the attitude I have now. I really don't care what people think. And I'll ask questions that, you're going to ask a question like that? Oh God. But it really changes your outlook on everything. And I would love to see something I couldn't explain. I really would. I mean, the first time I saw the F-117 from a distance, it was changing shape. It's because it was faceted and the way the light was shining on it.
Wow, interesting.
And the first day, the day I saw my very first F-117, I was with John Lear, and it was also the day that I met Bob Lazar for the first time. And he had not gone to work out in the desert yet, and his response is unbelievable. And if you want, I can go into my how I met Bob Lazar, and that's a fun one. And I really cherish my friendship with him, and I don't take advantage of it. I don't try to put him in a corner or whatever. Yeah. I only have 2 pictures of Bob. One's with my kid, and one's with me, because I don't take pictures of my friends. I can go up and see them. Unfortunately, like John Lear, he just passed away here in March. Yeah. And I'd known him since the early 70s. Wow. But it's in November of 88, the United States Air Force announced the existence of 2 classified aircraft programs, the F-117 stealth fighter and the B-2 stealth bomber. And they showed a picture of the F-117. It was taken from a boom operator's position in an aerial tanker. It was shot with a telephoto lens. It was backlit, so you really couldn't see any detail, and it was compressed. So you didn't get the full shape of the airplane. And I got really excited about it. So the first week of January of '89, so it's been less than a month and a half since they announced the existence of the F-117. I'm with John Lear, and they said, "Hey, let's go see if we can find an F-117." Sounds good. So we're heading up US 95, going from Las Vegas to Tonopah. Tonopah's about 200 miles, and it's a halfway point between there and Reno. So we're just north of, we just passed Scotty's Junction. And Scotty's Junction's important because it was the location of a legal house of ill repute, also known as a whorehouse.
Yeah.
And they didn't pay all their taxes, and they were taken over by the federal government, and they ran it out of business. I don't know how you do that. You know, the inventory doesn't spoil. Well, some of it spoils.
Well, it does. It ain't. I don't think it stays refrigerated as long as.
Okay. So we're about 50. We're really going down the
We
tubes
knew
here.
we'd land here. It was
Yeah.
just a matter of time.
Yeah. So we're about 15 miles north of Scotty's Junction, and about F-117 flies right in front of about 1,500 feet above the ground, crossing over the road, US 95 on about a 45-degree angle, as it was heading back to Tonopah test range. I almost crashed the car. I mean, here you see a picture of something you've been hearing about it since the 70s. What is this thing? It's this incredible invisible airplane, and this big ugly black thing. So John Lear and I, we stopped in Tonopah. We grabbed a quick bite. They had a McDonald's there, and McDonald's went out of business. I don't know how you do that with a McDonald's, and it was the only one within 200 miles.
How did that happen?
I don't know.
The only McDonald's was
ever in existence to go out of business.
Yeah. So we grab a quick bite, and we hit US 6. You head out of town eastbound about 14 miles, and there's a big sign. It's a Tonopah test range, operated by Sandia Corporation, and it has a B-43 nuclear weapon shape with a rocket booster on the back on top of the sign. And we turn down that road. You go down 18 miles to the gate of Tonopah test range, and that's where the man camp is, and that's where everybody stays if they're there all week long. So I mean, I'm retired military. I can get on most bases, but I can't get on Tonopah or Area 51 because it's classified. Mm-hmm. But we drove along the northern fence line. Now we're in BLM property. It's not Black Lives Matter. It's Bureau of Land Management.
Mm-hmm.
It's our land that the government manages to a point. And we went about 2 miles down this fence line, and you could look, and you can do it today. If you wanted to drive, go up to Tonopah and go to the Tonopah test range, you can go right down the fence line. There's nothing they can do to you. They can harass you. They can say this or that, but you're in public lands. You can be there for 15 consecutive days without anybody's permission.
Wow.
So,
road trip.
So we drive down now. This is before digital cameras. So and normally I shot Kodachrome slides, but being I needed this turned around really quick, I had print film. I had Kodacolor 100, and we're waiting. I look way to the north, and 20 miles north, there's a black fuzzy ball with a little light on the bottom, and then a smaller bluish white fuzzy ball with a light on it. Figured that has to be an F-117 and a chase plane. They almost always, early on, they always flew with a chase plane to make sure that nothing falls off or whatever. If it does, let's go back and retrieve it because it has stuff on it you're not supposed to have. And so I'm getting really excited, and I have my Nikon. I have a Nikon 200 millimeter lens. It's really sharp. And I have my motor drive, and I'm looking in there. The F-117 is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden, my body started to react. It was like I was a 10-year-old boy seeing a naked woman for the first time. My whole body was vibrating, and I couldn't stop it. I mean, it was pathetic. So I'm just shooting away, and I'm hoping to say, like, God, I hope these things are sharp. Because I was vibrating so much, I didn't know if I had anything done. Now, back in 1989, they had places in your parking lots. They weren't coffee baristas. They were photo mats where you can go in, you can drop your film off, pick it up the next day, processed and printed.
Mhm.
So
I remember those days.
yeah, I knew we weren't gonna get back to Las Vegas in time to have to go to a photomat, which means I have to wait another day or two to get this stuff processed. And so, we left there. I mean, I went through all 36 exposures, and then we said, let's go. So we head back, go back up, we get on the main highway, we get to Warm Springs, we head south on the extraterrestrial highway, Nevada 375, which the only town on it, or if you want to call it a town, the only community on it is Rachel, the home of the little Lynn. And so we went in there. We had Joe and Pat Travis. Joe was still alive back then. And we had a quick bite. And we weren't going to get back to Las Vegas until after 9 o'clock at night. So I know all the photomats are going to be closed. So John Lear said, well, I have a buddy of mine coming over. I think you'll enjoy meeting him. He's interviewing for a job out in the desert. And he just, he's been here. He'd been here about a month. And said, fine. So we get to Lear's house. And if none of you have had the experience of going into John Lear's study, they should have taken his entire room, picked it up, put it in a museum somewhere, and just sealed it off so you couldn't touch it, couldn't dust it. And that's John Lear's study. It's about a 20 by 30 foot room. It was filled with stuff. I mean, You couldn't put anything more on the wall. You couldn't put any more furniture or artifacts or whatever in there. So we're there, and it's a little bit after 9, and when we got home, I got to his house, and a little bit later, a few minutes later, knock on the front door. Lear goes and answers the door. He comes back into the study with this nice-looking young guy, introduces himself as Bob Lazar. And we were telling about our adventure, and I told him, I said, hey, I'm really frustrated because I have this film of a stealth airplane, the F-117, and I got to wait till tomorrow to go to Photomat to get it processed, and it's going to take a day. And what happens if they overcook it or whatever? And he said, well, I got a solution for that. And I said, what's that? He said, well, I have a processing unit at home. To keep my mind occupied while I'm waiting for a clearance, and the other job interviews, I process film for a whole big office of realtors. Again, this is before digital cameras. So
why am I not surprised at this? That he had a solution like that. Oh, I've got a solution for that.
Yeah. So we jump in his car, and John Lear lived right near Sunrise Ridge, south of Nellis Air Force Base. Huge house, 10,000 square foot house. Bob lives on west side of town off of West Charleston. So we're heading down Hollywood Boulevard. That's the street that John used to live on. And Lazar looks at me and he said, I feel sorry for that dumb son of a bitch Lear. I said, what do you mean? I said, here's this guy's from this world famous aviation family. I mean, his dad brought Learjet to the world, and the SOB believes in UFOs. How stupid is that? He said, I'm a nuclear physicist. You can't put a gun to my head to convince me that UFOs were real. Now, this is before he went to work out in the desert. So is it real or is it Memorex? I mean,
that's interesting.
Yes. So working at S4 turned Bob around. Bob's story has never changed.
Yep.
He told me here a couple of years ago, the biggest mistake he ever made was going public.
I can imagine.
But he felt that he had to protect himself. His wife died under questionable circumstances, and he wasn't sure if our government did her in as just a warning to him. And I don't know, but he felt that he had to protect himself.
Yeah.
Now, he was called up during the interview process, and I think he may have been hired on, but hadn't been there that long. He got called up to Indian Springs, which is now Creech Air Force Base. It's about 25 miles up US 95 outside of Vegas. And, two FBI agents had him in the car. They put a gun to his head and threatened him. And I think that's when he decided, I got to go public. I cannot let these people terrorize me the rest of my life.
Wow.
And he knew John Lear, and I think he asked Lear, who should I deal with this? And he said, George Knapp, KLAS, Channel 8, CBS. And so I've known George as long as I've known Bob Lazar.
Wow.
Do the aspects of Have Blue lead to the credence of alien reverse technology? No. This is for Anonymous Rex. Have Blue was one of actually 4 programs based on the low observable technology calculations. The Russians developed how can you predict the radar cross section of something with multiple shapes. And part of that program, they came out with Senior Ice, which was Lockheed's competition for the stealth bomber, which Northrop Grumman got on the B-2. They had Senior Trend, which turned out to be the F-117. They had Senior Prom, which was the stealth cruise missile that looked exactly like a baby F-117. I have pictures of that.
Really?
Yeah. So all the technology came out of the same study on how the Russians were able to predict the radar return off of various shapes and whatever. And I asked Ben Rich, it says, why is Have Blue and the F-117 faceted?
Yeah.
He said, we had to get to a point where we broke the pencil. You could keep designing it, working on it forever, because every day things improve. They got a better understanding of the radar cross section and how to predict it, how to negate it. So he said they had to break the pencil. He said 4 months later, they had the ability to design a blended rounded fuselage versus a faceted fuselage. There are no circles or round parts on an F-117. Every surface is a flat surface, and no matter where you're looking at with the radar, there are the most surfaces you can see are, I believe it's 6, and every single one of those surfaces radiates the energy away from the transmitter and the receiver, and that's the key. That's the key to reducing the radar cross section. Is when you send a signal out, the radar will hit a surface and it reflects back. And it says, even if it's a weak signal, the computers can process it. Okay, it's this airplane's here, and we're plotting it. But on the F-117, literally, when a beam would hit the side or any part of the fuselage or even the bottom, it would reflect the radiated energy away from the receiver. So you can transmit, the beam will hit it, and then it goes off to left field.
Interesting.
And years later, when they had the ability to do blended fuselage, like the F-22 and the F-35, they decided they took the F-117 wind tunnel model. Now, he said the F-117 was one of the best flying of any airplane that Skunk Works ever developed. It would right at V1, the nose would lift up. At V2, it would just go into the air. He said it was beautiful. So they decided, I wonder how well the airplane would fly if we were able to blend, round all the surfaces. So they did that to the model, and it flew like crap. It actually flew, and it was the first airplane never to have an aerodynamic wing. I mean, the surfaces were flat. The bottom was totally flat, and the top is it just made of three flat surfaces. So it was really quite a technological leap as far as reducing the radar cross section, and the Senior Prom. And I should send Lynn a picture of Senior Prom, so when I'm talking about it, I can show it to you. But
Let's see if I can.
It looks like a baby F-117.
Okay, I'll see if I can find a picture while you're talking about it.
Yeah, just go and punch in senior prom, or that would be the correct term. And it's I have pictures of it hanging from a C-130, a drone launching DC-130. They were flying out of Area 51, but the airplane was the senior prom was had such a low radar cross section that they flew it. They had 13 flights. They were flying it right at the 25. That was the prototype.
Okay.
But that's basically what it's a faceted airplane. That's one of the pictures I had. Ben Rich gave me those photos, those slides. Cool. Yeah, and he said, "Don't publish them until I've been dead for at least 10 years." So they're not classified, but you're going to have some people go, "How in the hell did he got that?" So no one's ever asked me as far from the government, "How did you get that?" But so no, the technology is the physical shape of the airplane or the flying machine is such that it reflects 99.9% of all radiated energy heading towards it. It reflects it away from the receiving site. That's where site.
Then how does the F-22, which is obviously not faceted, how does that work as far as
because what they did 4 months after they froze the design of the F-117 and have blue, they had the computing capability to predict the radar return on a blended fuselage.
Oh, okay.
And there's the F-22.
Yeah, it's a beautiful plane.
And all the angles, if you look at the inlet, it's at the leading edge, the trailing edge, and the leading edge of the tails and the horizontal stabilizers, they're all at the exact same angle. This way they can predict and they can control where the radar heads back to. And plus, I just packed it up. I'm moving my office. We're getting new carpeting in the house, so I filled up 6 big boxes of just one bookcase of Blackbird and F-117 stuff off my. But I actually have some of the radar absorbers material used on the F-117.
Oh wow!
It looks like a rubber mat with an adhesive back, and it's filled with iron particles. And the radar hits. First of all, the shape reduces the radar return by about 99%. And then you use radar absorption materials and coatings that will take the radiated energy, the microwave energy, it'll hit, and it will be absorbed into the coatings and actually it would create heat. And it would dissipate and it wouldn't have anything to return back to the transmitter receiver site.
So it's basically a literal non-reflective surface.
Correct.
Interesting.
Correct. Yeah. So the F-117 has such a small radar cross section that during Desert Storm, they would go into the hangars at night to getting ready to launch to go to desert, to go bomb Baghdad, and there'd be dead or unconscious bats on the floor of the hangar because they're flying in total darkness and they're flying full speed and they're sending their beep out.
Oh.
It's not coming, and they would run
right into it,
right into the low observable.
Poor bats.
Yeah. So stealth really does work.
Sorry, it's not funny for the bats.
The bats. Wow.
Oh my God.
Oh well.
So let me ask you something. Earlier in the evening, you were talking about how, making comments about, we have technology that's so far advanced, so we've talked kind of about the different planes and stuff, but what about the propulsion system? I can't say propulsion system. How far have we really gotten with that? I mean, because
Well,
if
I
we're
mean,
talking about being able to do that, are we anti-gravitational and we just don't know that they cracked that code?
well, I mean, if they use, and now just recently, within the last 6 months, it was announced that in a lab, um, some of our scientists have developed and actually created a very small amount of element 115. That's the anti-gravity material that Bob said was the heart and soul of the anti-gravity device in the sports model that he worked on.
Mm-hmm.
Said there were 9 craft in a series of 9 bays in the side of a mountain on Papoose Lake. And someone was I forget how the interview was going, but someone asked Bob about, have you ever had any you ever have to cancel a flight? I said, yeah. I said, all of a sudden we had some strange weather, pick up. We were just ready to launch and we had to abort. And I mean, it was something that if he was a fraud, he would have to stop and think, I have to give a good response to this. What is it? And then, but he said, well, what happens? Has there been any weather related cancellations of flights of your sports model? He said, yeah. And we had strong winds come up and whatever. So there's a number of different things that tell me that Bob Lazar is real. One is the things that Ben Rich told me, and the statements that Ben Rich said to a public audience at UCLA, that we have the ability to take ET home. So I mean,
we were able to create our own 115, and the fact that we were able to create it. I mean, I thought there was something to 115 that's like in its pure form is different than what we're able to create. And I don't know anything about how you make 115. So you talk about that.
I mean, I don't even know if they just added another notch of credibility to Bob Lazar because somebody said, well, 115 doesn't exist anywhere in the universe. Well, yes, it does.
Right.
And we were able to produce it in a lab. I mean, there's a lot of isotopes that we have. Almost everything above plutonium has been created in a lab or in a reactor of some sort. So it's just technology. It's moving. It's moving so fast. I was, for a lot of years, I was in the area of information storage. Started out with floppy disks. I'm talking about the 5 1/4. Then I went to diskettes. Then it went to CD-ROM, DVD. Then I went to hard drive. Now, I can get an SD card the size of a postage stamp, and it'll have 250 or 512 terabytes or gigabytes. No, terabytes. I mean, it's the amount of information we can cram into something the size of your thumbnail is amazing. And that's that's the stuff that they show us. That's the stuff that that it's heading towards commercial technology, DVD drive or, your computers, your iPhones and whatever. That's old technology compared to what they're dealing with.
You see, but I see it as it's almost like we're kids playing with guns. It's like back to where we started the show. We talked about, we create things that we don't know where to dump. So let's burn them and let's kill people.
Right.
We throw stuff up in the sky, up to orbit, and it becomes space junk. It's like we don't have any freaking exit strategy. The other day, we blew one up into the moon because we didn't know what the hell to do with it. It's just like I don't know if we're ready for. I mean, obviously we're not. We've made bad choices. It's like free energy. Oh, nuclear power. Oh, let's go nuclear because that makes more sense. And then you wonder why we're
more people have died in Ted Kennedy's Oldsmobile than have died in American nuclear power plants. So
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, they say we need clean
They
energy.
might not have died there, but they'll die years later from the
Yeah.
effects of being.
Yeah. No, my dad
The sad part,
my dad was
yeah.
a mad scientist, and he
Mhm.
was at Oak Ridge, Tennessee, working on nuclear fusion for a number of years. Now, back in the 50s, the Soviet Union just turned over to Oak Ridge and Atomic Energy Commission everything you needed to create unlimited pollution-free energy in nuclear fusion. And they figured you were 50 years out. Well, 50 years later, when my dad was working on the program, he said, well, we're making inroads, but we're about 50 years away from having a working model. So everything is 50 years out.
Yeah.
But when I was doing my Skunk Works book, one of the programs that Lockheed is working on, the Skunk Works working on, is their compact fusion reactor. It uses non-nuclear, non-radioactive, I think it's depleted uranium as a fuel source. It requires no maintenance. It cannot be used as a dirty bomb, and it'll operate for 20 years without you doing anything, and it'll fit in a 40-foot shipping container.
Huh.
And it has the power for a city of 100,000 people. They're developing it for remote locations where you go, maybe it's Antarctica. They're going to drill and find this, the underground city in Antarctica. So they can bring the thing in there, and they need power, and they need to get warm. They need to be able to melt the ice. We'll use lasers and whatever. So what you need to do, you need a power source. So they bring this thing in. Maybe they bring in two of them. One keeps the scientists warm. One, creates the ability to melt the ice to see what's below the ice. During Desert Storm, I had a friend of mine who was he was in the Army, and he had an outpost in the Saudi frontier.
Mm-hmm.
And he says it's like you have a tabletop flat, glass flat, and he got on top of his Humvee with a big set of binoculars. He did 360-degree sweep, and there was absolutely nothing. The only reason he knew where he had to be, he was the platoon leader, is by GPS coordinates. And you need to be at this longitude and latitude at this time and set up your relay. It was a communication relay. And if they wanted to put a base out there, there's how do you operate? You bring in fuel trucks, you have big generators, they make noise, they create heat. But if you had this compact fusion reactor, that will, you can truck in or bring it in a C-130 or a C-17, set it up, plug it in, and you can have yourself a small city powered for 20 years, and it's non-polluting and it's small. But
yet when cities are in crisis, we don't take care of them. It's like if you have a hurricane or a situation where
that is
no freaking energy forever, nobody cares. And
that is 100% laid at the feet of the politicians on both sides of the aisle. It has nothing to do with the technology. It has the will to be able to utilize the technology where it can be best be used. So, if they can get the compact fusion reactor a little bit smaller, or even the same size, they can go into a Boeing 777 size airplane. They can put the fusion reactor in the cargo hold. They can put some advanced electric motors on the engine nacelles, and they can fly forever. They can fly for 20 years and never have to land.
Wow.
So that's what they're working on, and that's what the Skunk Works is working on. That's public. Now, when I did my book, they were in version 5. They figured by version 8, they will have it small enough that it will fit into a standard shipping container, like you see in junkyards and on boats and everything else. That's how small this nuclear reactor can be. And it's a non-polluting, non-radioactive, safe, clean energy source. And it's just a matter of time before it comes to pass. And right now, the cleanest energy we have is natural gas. But one that's cleaner than that is, the only problem is disposal of spent, rods is nuclear. Nuclear doesn't create heat, doesn't create pollution, doesn't create, carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide. It just has, you have to deal with the spent fuel rods. They spent $4 billion building Yucca Mountain, and that jackass, Harry, whatever his name is, Reed, prevented it from being utilized. It's in an area. It's in the nuclear spent fuel storage facility is in the Nevada test site. It's an area that has been declared a worldwide off-limits zone. There's a few of those around. Chernobyl is probably one of them. Mm-hmm. I know Hanford Project. There's a lot of areas that's a world set aside. These areas are off limits for eternity, because the half-life of plutonium is 10,000 years. Mm. And so you have to go a long time before that stuff becomes, inert. But so.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to take a quick moment to say thank you to Terry Screwloose, who just bought 5 teas. Thank you so much, Terry, for the donation to the channel. It is always so appreciated.
Nice.
He is so sweet
all the time.
So sweet. Yes, he's wonderful. We love Terry.
Terry Screwloose, huh?
Terry Screwloose. Yeah. Love Terry. Terry's awesome.
Mugs. He's so cool.
Yeah, that's true. He has a Rebellious Ufology mug now too. It's very exciting. I love it.
Yeah,
love it. It's amazing.
Man, I was going somewhere with this. I was thinking.
Sorry,
I was just thinking of a follow up. No. That's no. I wanted you to pipe in. I was just thinking of a follow up on that one because. Oh yeah. So back to where we started. Do you think, Jim, that I'm all about Utah right now? Woo, Utah! Ever since we were in Vernal, so I'm like obsessed. But back to Dugway and really back to Area 51. Do you think that just some of the, I know that there's so many experiences that are reported out there. I mean, do you believe that is either attracted or created by some of the things that we've actually done rather than some more natural?
Absolutely. I mean, anything that you can't explain, if it's man-made. I mean, if you, depending on what it is.
I was thinking like back to burn pits, back to the test with the warfare, back to the nuclear testing in the area. Is it? Yeah. Have we really broken that whole area of the country? I'm just.
I think because of public awareness of the burn pits at Area 51 and other god awful pathogens that we've let loose on the world, even those that wouldn't normally be good stewards of our Earth are being forced to do it because there's too many people and too many whistleblowers, so to speak, that are watching them, and even in the classified environment area, they can really put the screws to you if you were to go back and start burning stuff or dumping stuff. It's a 20th century problem. I think it's 21st century. Some of the idiots out there are starting to think, well, maybe we shouldn't kill the only planet we know how to survive on. Yeah, I'm not an environmentalist, but I see the garbage and the crap that's dumped into the ocean. And I'm saying, where's your head? Where's your brain? I mean, even if you're a third world or fourth world country, there has to be some common sense in there somewhere. You don't go in and deplete all the fish in the ocean because you can. You have to think about the ramifications of what happens in the future. What happens next year if we, 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 turn the soil into dust, into unusable, into a wasteland. And it's happening all over the world. Fortunately, in the first world, which is us and most of Europe, I'd say Australia, New Zealand, English speaking, and Japan and Korea. I think the Chinese are terrible stewards of the environment. Same with the Russians. Same with India and Pakistan. They don't care. They're only thinking about how does it affect me today, not how is it going to affect the population and Earth 10 years from now, 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now. I mean, they're putting stuff into the ground that is so nasty that you wonder when the hell was what was their common sense? What was,
Yeah.
Pull your head out of your butt and look around. I mean, because we all occupy the same place. So, you may be pulling things out and doing this or that because you can. But it's, are you going to, poop in your own bed? And that's
don't go there, because after that whole trial.
Oh yeah.
That is obviously
I should have talked to Amber first before I said anything. So I'm sorry about that.
I am just amazed at the stuff that we throw out there without consequence. I mean, it's like I'm sitting here in the cabin in Oklahoma, and we've talked to our in-laws that live down lake, and they wouldn't even burn poison ivy because it could be toxic. There's like, we were talking about brush piles and stuff and like burning them, and you have to have responsibility. How could the things that matter the most? I mean, you had 6,000 dead sheep on the Dugway, and nobody freaking cared. And it's like we just continue to make these mistakes, and we just think we're without consequence all the way around in our daily behavior with each other and in how we manage this type of technology or these type of dangerous materials, because we're just trying stuff out.
Yeah. I mean, I've had, I don't know if it was an eye opener. I've traveled all over the planet, a lot of places in third world and fourth world, in Central America, South America, and Mexico. And I am absolutely appalled that our neighbors to the south, they're not very far away. I mean, 100 miles, I'm in Mexico, or less than that. And the living conditions and the stuff is just dumped everywhere. I mean, it's just, and it's worse when you go into countries like India and or China, or a lot of areas in the Middle East. You have the incredible wealth, but you also have the incredible poverty. And they're not good stewards. I mean, I can't say I'm a good steward. I don't necessarily practice what I preach. I mean, I used to change my oil in my 67 Camaro. I just go into a gravelly area, open it up, drain it, put it back in. You didn't think about it. This is back in the 60s. We're now in the 20s. I don't know where in the hell time went. I mean, my brain for some reason is still in the 80s and early 90s, not even past Desert Storm. And it's been 30 years since Desert Storm, or actually longer than that. And I look around the world, and I see the stuff that's being dumped and the trash, and even you go in some of the less affluent areas here in Tucson. We have a lot of wilderness out here, a lot of desert, and there's people that dumped a garbage truckload of stuff in a pristine part of the desert, with the border crossings. Border crossers are leaving in the desert. I mean, you could fill up a football stadium with the garbage that they have recovered. And no one seems to care. Well, it's not my business, not my backyard, it's not my neighborhood. I don't care. And unfortunately, I mean, that's going to have to change. That's going to have to change because something's going to happen. Something is going to come up and just slap us aside the head and said, it's time to wake up. By the way, it's too late. And that's my biggest fear. I mean, I'm 77, so, but I have another 30 years left because I know I'm gonna live over 100. But I have to, my concern is not with me. I've had little red dots on my chest. I've been shot at. I've had the snot beat out of me. I wasn't supposed to make it through brain surgery. So, I live a charmed life because I'm still here. But I'm concerned about my kids, my grandkids. And between Rosemary and I, we have, depending on how you count it, we either have 4 or we have 7 great grandkids. So, and it's the concern is for them, not for us.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. There's times I know I haven't been out of the house other than to go in the backyard and jump in the pool. There's Chad Smith. He's one of the good guys.
Yeah, he's great.
Awesome.
And that's what I love about this group of characters. I mean, I really adore so many of them. It's just it just tickles me. I mean, Sonny Conway is the paranormal chop shop.
Yeah.
When I head into California, if I'm heading up the Bay Area, I'll stop at Sonny's. He'll put me up for a night or two, and we'll talk until I can't talk anymore and my voice is gone. I mean, one night this is about 5 months ago, I was up there and we were on the air 2.5 hours on his program, and then he said, "Oh, Chad is on right now, and we're going to be on them too." So we got on, and it just went. I think I talked nonstop for 5.5, almost 6 hours.
If anyone can do it, it's you, Jim.
Yeah, and my TI and basic training told me. He said, "Goodall said you have everything going for your mouth."
Yeah.
And it's still going. I mean, it's still going 70 years later. It's still running off of the mouth. So I like to talk.
We all love you. I hope you see. I mean, you talk about the community and the cast characters, and you're one of them. You're one of us, and I hope you feel the welcome because it's definitely there. It's like we all just embrace you, and it's a two-way street.
I mean, two guys I absolutely was the first podcast I was ever on, and as far as UFO related, was the UFO Garage guys.
Oh, awesome.
Joe and Ben. And I met them for the very first time at my very first MUFON function. It was the one that Lauren Felton had in San Francisco in early March of 2020. That was the only one that happened up until just recently. And they were in the lobby, and they were sort of the Wayne's World of the UFO community. And that's how I feel. All of them, everybody, Dave Scott. I love the guy. I love his voice. He's an incredible talking head. I mean, he just, but he's just, and they're all like that. Again, there's a few people, and I won't mention names because it's too small of a community. But there's one or two assholes here that I won't be unkind to, but I won't go out of my way to do anything for. But other than that, 99% of them, I would walk a mile, barefooted in a hot day to help them out if I had to.
Yeah,
so
it's a great.
We appreciate you so much as part of this community. I just,
and I don't have some of
hang out. That's awesome.
A couple of the characters in this community, they have an agenda. I don't. I have a lot of knowledge. Yeah, I'm not out for fame and fortune. I mean, my ex-wives have taken all that from me. All I have is my bad name and a good memory, and it's just. And
it's all Goodall. How much better can it be than that? It's all Goodall.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I will say on chat when that name was born, it was Enzo.
It was Enzo.
Marketing machine Enzo. He's like, the show should be, it's all Goodall. We're like, you're brilliant, man. Brilliant.
Yeah.
So
Well, and again, I would go out of the way. And the funny thing, I was at a month ago, maybe 5 weeks ago, Lynn wasn't feeling good. So, well, let's keep it at an hour. I said, sure. 2 hours and 15 minutes, I think, is when we finally killed it.
I think so, yeah.
You just keep on going. It's like
I wasn't
perpetual
feeling
motion.
good. I fell asleep on the floor, but the show must go on.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So, but Cris, it's just an absolute delight to meet you, see your face,
I know. I'm so excited. I finally met you. I've been watching you. Like,
and you may not say that if you really knew who I was, but that's beside the point.
She would.
oh,
She would.
no.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you for taking the time to hang out with, have me over. This is fantastic.
It's either that or drink, and I don't drink, so
I don't drink either. So
Well,
I
when
drink this, and this is my problem, and it's styrofoam. So I need to make some, life
Yeah,
changes because I'm
I
so hooked on these.
I only drink water. I'm not a anti drinking person. The net result of my brain surgery, like I say, I was 9.5 hours. They were inside my hell out of the back of my head. They opened me up. I had 138 stitches, a 2.5-inch hole in the base of my skull. But even this much wine in a glass will give me a splitting headache for days.
Still to this day, it will.
To this day, I had the last drink I had was my second date with my wife right after I met her, which was in December 2007. One of my favorite things to drink was B&B, Benedictine and brandy. It's like rocket fuel. And I drank it, and I had on a scale of 1 to 10, I had about an 11 headache for 2 days, and I really could not function.
Wow.
So I've been everybody's designated driver ever since. And I never was much of a drinker. I've thrown up with the best of them. You laugh. I mean, I know I've destroyed some paint jobs on cars by going, all that acid is just.
It's hilarious. Oh my gosh.
You never know what's gonna happen.
You never know.
Yeah.
You never know where this conversation's gonna go.
It's all good, although that's okay.
Yeah. But it's been delightful 2+ hours, and it never stops at an hour.
No.
Even though that's sort of our thumbnail, we have to get past an hour, but all of a sudden realize, well,
is that really the thumbnail? I'm not sure. I think it's like, we'll just go till we go.
Yeah. So
she goes with the flow. I'm more of a planner. We discovered this in our trip to Utah that I'm like, I list things, and she's like, no, I haven't even gone there yet. I'm not even thinking about that. And I'm like, it's like 8 hours away. We'll talk an hour before it happens.
I mean, I don't do any prep. Yeah, I read. I'm aware of what's happening in the world. I mean, I don't watch TV news. I read news from all over the planet, and I do it primarily because I want to get someone else's. I don't want someone who has their opinion already been formulated. I'm going to come in here and I'm just reading what was on the screen.
Oh, sorry. Nino was just saying hi to everyone.
Saying hi is Nino.
Yeah.
That Nino kind of guy, XOXO, just call him Nino.
Yeah.
Nino? Yeah. Is it Nino? I always thought it was Nino.
I think, well, maybe it's Nino. I call him Nino.
I like Nino though.
Or Nino or Nino.
You'll come back right
What was that just came out of my mouth?
Yeah. So
it could be an Enya. I think it just the Enya didn't show up in the game. Anyway.
So I think that's about does it.
Lynn, you good?
I'm good.
I've heard my doggie at the door.
Oh, Miss Scarlett said it's time to be done.
She wants to come in, and again, I look forward to Mondays. Not many people do, but every day is a Saturday to me because I'm retired. So but I do look forward to Monday afternoons. It's
Oh, I
You
do
just
too.
too, Jim. Thank you.
it's fun. The people, the people that Lynn has gathered to be on with with her and I are great. Great, and I look forward to next week.
Yeah.
She started that rebellion, so
Yeah, and
we follow.
I'll talk to Michael Schratt and find out when he's available.
Yeah.
We'll
As
get
I
him
said,
on.
Michael's always welcome anytime.
Yep.
He's
He's a
wonderful.
sweet. Oh,
I love Michael.
And I talk to him about every other day,
Aw.
and I have for a couple of years. So
Well, tell him we all said hi.
I will. Cris, Lynn, and with her new last name.
it's been a pleasure.
You have a wonderful week. Stay cool down in Texas, and it's a dry heat.
Still hot.
Yeah,
yeah.
you said the humidity, and I'm like, I brought it.
Yeah.
I've got the humidity right here.
Yeah, but my ex called me, said, "You ready for humid weather?" And I said, "What's that?" And I said, "We have a heat advisory. The actual temperature is going to be about 90 something, but the heat index will be 105 to 110 because of the humidity."
Wow.
I said, "Make sure your air conditioner is working." My son, I'm going to use his Suburban. It has air conditioning. And last time I filled it up, it holds 24 gallons of gas because I told him, "I'll fill it up for you." That was the last time I was there. I don't think I'll do it this time.
I was going to say,
He makes more money than I ever made in my life.
Well, there you
go. He's a
let him fill it too.
he's a construction superintendent. So
good for him. That's amazing.
But he's a wonderful young man and a great dad. But with that, I will wish you a wonderful evening.
Hey, happy belated Father's Day.
Yes. Happy belated Father's Day, Jim.
Yeah, I got a text from my daughter.
Nice.
But then she called me.
Oh, good.
I thought it was kind of a book, and then my son called me. So I have, they're all accounted for. At least the ones I know of. So.
Let's not go there. That's a different episode.
No,
The many Goodalls. Nope.
Yeah.
I can come up with them.
All righty. It's time to say au revoir, good night, aloha,
Thank you.
adios, and it's been fun. Cris, I had an enjoyable couple hours, and it's always a delight, Lynn, dealing with you.
As you as well, Jim. I always love our Monday nights. It's great.
And I'm going to go. You all take care.
Have a great night.
All right. Adios. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Cris. Thank you, everyone else. All right, so let's say good night and let everyone have their night. Thank you so much, Cris, for being on. It's been wonderful as always.
It was fun. That was so much fun.
Yeah,
it was so great talking to Jim. He's just so lovely.
He is. He's amazing.
And so are you.
Darling. So are you.
I've missed you.
Oh, I've missed you too. I know I've missed everyone, but it's been crazy. It's been crazy fun. So,
I know. Yeah. Can't wait to see the stuff that you're coming up with. I'm so excited.
Me too. It's going to be so much fun. I'm headed down to Connecticut tomorrow. What?
I said, thank you, chatters. I have the chat on my other screen.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm like waving over there. You're like, she's waving out the window. First you thought I fell earlier. Now I'm waving out the window. No, I was just waiting at chat.
Oh my God. All right. Well, everyone have a wonderful night. Thank you guys for joining us. And thank you, Cris.
Thank you.
All right. Talk to everyone soon. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Time life mattered inside the light, I'll watch the world play. In between the veils, I'd like to stay. Your crazed dark skies, something's new now behind your eyes. Feeling left behind. I wanna know. I'll tell you that I need a longer day to wash my fears away, chase the life I dream, and there'll be much more to show, and I will never know the darker side of me. I wanna know. I wanna know. I'll learn it all tonight. Tonight I'll watch my problems fade away. The only time life matters is the soft fade. I'll tell you that I need a longer day to wash my fears away, chase the life I dream. There'll be much more to show, and I will never know the darker side of me. I need a longer day to wash my fears away, chase the life I dream. There'll